Hey students, welcome to another Mr. Ness screencast. Today's aim is Intro to Imperialism, and here are your objectives. Please pause the video, look these questions over, and get ready to copy some vocab terms and take some notes. The first term is the Age of Imperialism, and it's the time period that you'll be studying throughout this unit. This was a historical era when the US, along with countries in Europe and Japan, started colonizing foreign lands. You probably learned about this period in global history. It lasted from about 1890 until 1920. Now you might notice that this period overlaps with the Progressive Era. The difference between this period and the Progressive Era is that when we talk about the Progressive Era, we're referring to actions that people in America took to fix problems in America. But when we talk about the Age of Imperialism, we're talking about actions that America took in foreign countries. Throughout this unit, you will look at changes in America's foreign policy. Foreign policy means a government strategy in dealing with other countries. Foreign policy can take different forms. For example, a government can go to war with other countries, or it can sign peace treaties, or it can form alliances with other countries, or it can just ignore other countries and focus on itself. U.S. foreign policy is a big topic of debate because it has huge effects on both American citizens as well as people in other countries. During the Age of Imperialism, the U.S. followed a foreign policy called expansion, which means they were aggressively taking over other countries. The next term is manifest destiny, which you learned about last semester. Manifest destiny is the belief that the U.S. had a duty to spread its culture across North America from the Atlantic to the Pacific Oceans. This was the belief that motivated Western expansion in the early 1800s, when the U.S. took over lots of new land in North America. Manifest destiny has racist connotations because it suggests that other cultures like Native Americans or Mexicans are uncivilized and inferior and need to be educated and introduced to the culture of white Americans. You probably looked at this famous painting, American Progress by John Gast. This painting sums up manifest destiny because it shows an angel, which represents American civilization, spreading light as it moves westward. By 1860, the U.S. had succeeded in taking over pretty much all of the land from the East Coast to the West Coast. Manifest destiny had been achieved. But then the Americans wanted even more land to take over. So at the end of the 1800s, they started looking for places overseas that they could take over too. And that led to a new policy called imperialism. Imperialism means using force to control a foreign nation. Imperialism was similar to what the Americans did to the Native Americans in the earlier period of westward expansion, because in both cases, Americans were taking other people's lands by force. But imperialism is different from the period of westward expansion, because during the Age of Imperialism, the U.S. started taking over foreign lands, lands that were not in North America. So instead of taking lands from Native Americans, the U.S. started taking over people who didn't live in North America. They lived overseas in foreign lands. Imperialism is an ugly, evil thing because the people who get taken over don't have a choice. They get taken over by force, usually through war, and they end up being oppressed. So why did Americans do this? There are a few reasons, and the most important is that imperialism allowed the U.S. to gain more land and more raw materials. And land and raw materials meant more wealth. So imperialism made some people in the U.S. a lot richer. The second reason the U.S. engaged in imperialism was to get new markets. And new markets means new places to sell things. As the US industrialized, there were a lot of businesses making products that they wanted to sell to people. And by taking over other people, the owners of those businesses could sell products to them too. So again, it was about money. The last reason was to get new naval bases. The American Navy was getting very powerful at the end of the 1800s, and its leaders wanted places where they could keep their ships and refuel them. As you'll see, a lot of the places the US colonized at this time were islands in the Pacific Ocean, because these islands could be used as naval bases. All right, last 2 words for today. We're going to use these words a lot in this unit, and I want you to understand them and use them correctly. When a country practices imperialism and takes over other people in a foreign land, that foreign land becomes the country's colony. The colony is now under the control of a foreign power that does not share its language or culture. So we say that it is a land under the control of a foreign ruler. And when a country has many colonies, we call it an empire. Between 1890 and 1920, the US government took over a lot of new colonies, and it became an empire. An empire is a lot of different groups of people with different languages and different cultures, all controlled by one government. In this unit, we'll be looking at the growth of the American Empire. Take a look at this map of the American Empire. Each box shows a place that the US took over at the end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s. So each of the places on this map became a US colony. This time period is the age of imperialism, and so imperialism is what we'll be studying throughout the unit. US imperialism was hypocritical because the US was founded by people who thought that it was unfair that Britain was controlling them without their consent. Remember how the Americans fought the American Revolution to be free from foreign control? Well, starting in 1890, America did the exact same thing to other nations that the British had done to them. Imperialism went against all the American ideas of independence and freedom from foreign rule. All right, now it's time to review the objectives. If you don't know the answer to any of them, just rewind the video and look again, and I will see you in class. Bye, students.